And we're live. Hello, welcome to the big show, everyone. I am Trish Regan. I'm just blown away. I mean, we are growing and growing and growing and growing. I want to say like 9,000 subs just yesterday alone. I mean, it's absolutely positively incredible, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you for that. We'll party a little bit later on in the show. But again, it's a big week for us because we crossed 800,000 and we keep growing. It's a big week in the news cycle. I was just listening to President Trump. He's all over Harvard. He said Harvard is totally disrespecting our country, so he's taken away hundreds of millions of dollars. They are cut off, shut off. We're going to get to that story. We've got the biggie on the table today, which is the revenge, if you would, of the Autopen. It's coming back to haunt the Biden people in a big, big way. Like, heads are going to roll. People are going to go to jail. This is a huge deal. New evidence today that potentially this was being sort of put into play, potentially by staffers, and allegedly they were getting paid big bucks for it. We're going to talk all about it. Plus, the feds are coming down on Nashville. The Nashville mayor thinks that he knows better than the federal government, and so he's trying to basically become the sanctuary city and hold out for all his ICE wanted criminals. And Tom Homan's like, that's not happening. And then the representative from Tennessee is like, it's definitely not happening. So they're opening an investigation into that mayor. We're going to get into it. And the Macrons, my gosh, the poor Macrons. Boy, I'll tell you, he picked the wrong gal. We'll go with that, okay? What were you thinking, Emmanuel? What were you thinking? The teacher, 25 years his senior. Welcome again to the show. Great to have you here. I am Trish Regan. This is the Trish Regan Show, and we kick it off today with the revenge of the Autopen. It really is coming back to haunt poor Joe Biden in a massive way, because this thing is going to take him down, his whole administration down, people around him down, as we get more and more talk of whether or not people were paying for pardons. I mean, that's a big part of the question. The Autopen in and of itself, right, is bad. And it probably means that all those pardons that were going down are going to be null and void. But this scandal could be so much bigger than that. And I think that's what people are really worried about, that we're part of that Biden administration. I mean, granted, it goes without saying that a lot of those orders that he put into place and a lot of the pardons that he put into place, probably illegal, right? Because there's this little thing called the Constitution, and that means that, you know, per Article 2 in the Constitution, you actually have to have the president, and I quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Well, the president can't, because the president is incapacitated, because the president is out to lunch, because the president is, unfortunately, perhaps very, very sick. Then who's actually running the country? And if you don't have someone that is an elected official running the country, well, then you would have to enact the 25th Amendment, would you not? But since they didn't enact the 25th Amendment, it actually may mean that all of Biden's pardons and all of his orders will be challenged. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. The obvious elephant in the room is who the heck was running the country the whole darn time? I mean, who really was? I mean, we know these things are going to have to be voided. They're going to be challenged legally. Then we're going to find out who exactly was getting paid to make them happen. But as Caroline Levitt said last night on my former colleague Sean Hannity's show on Fox, you know what? The president is, well, she didn't say that. You know where I'm going, because he is. He's like, what the heck was going down? Who was running this country? The USA. What, was being run by a bunch of 20-some-odd-year-old staffers? Maybe Blinken, maybe Jill Biden, maybe Jill Biden's chief of staff. Here's Caroline.
He's demanding answers, and one of the things he is going to continue to push for answers on is who the heck was running the country over the past 4 years. This is truly the greatest political scandal our country has ever seen. We had unelected, radical left White House staffers who nobody knew their names running the most powerful country in the history of the world. And the Democrat Party was in a complete alliance to cover it up. And the mainstream media was right along with them. They were asking Joe Biden what his favorite ice cream was, rather than asking him whether or not he was suited to run the country. And so we need answers on what took place over the past 4 years, because look at the consequences of having these unelected radical left-wing staffers in the West Wing running the country. We had a wide open border invasion that this administration is cleaning up every day despite challenges from the courts. We had an economy that was left in the dust.
Exactly. And you know what? If you guys actually had somebody in office that knew what they were doing, that had been properly elected, then you know what? You might have gotten another 4 years, but you were too stupid and too, I don't know, Machiavellian, some of you. Lincoln, I might be looking at you, right? So you thought that you could control all this, and then in controlling all this, you actually were your own worst enemy. And so now there are other things coming into question, as in, not just who was running the country, but if nobody was really running the country, if everybody was asleep at the switch, then how much would it have cost to get a pardon? And might some of the staffers been involved in, I don't know, selling pardons? Because Biden wasn't doing this. We know that. This actually came up. Representative Tim Burchett from Tennessee brought this up on our friend Benny's show, a great show, by the way. I want to go to this soundbite because this is important to hear. And he's making the point that, he doesn't actually have any evidence, but this has happened where he's come from. It's certainly happened before. They've even written songs about it. And we need to be realists here because there was no one in charge.
Got staffers. I would look. Tennessee has had a history of this. We had a governor several governors ago. He's since passed away, but he sold pardons. You can look it up. His name was Ray Blanton. It made national news, and I mean they wrote songs, "Pardon Me, Ray," and it was a cash for clemency deal. And that's exactly what I think you're going to find out. You're going to find staffers that were able to take forms, get them, and run them through some sort of bogus legal system, and then they auto-penned them, and there's probably people out on the street that shouldn't be, but somebody got rich off that, and I think those people I hate to say it, but you'll see something probably horrible happen to some of those people because it goes up the chain. This is a very dangerous town to play games in. I have no direct proof of that, but I'm just talking about history. And if you got somebody making $100,000 a year and somebody offers you $250,000 in some safety deposit box.
Right? For the record, do you know how many pardons Biden actually issued? A grand total of 8,064 pardons. It is the highest number, like by many multiples, of any president to have ever issued in the U.S. to date. 4,245 acts of clemency, which included both pardons and commutations. Notably, on December 12th, remember this day, he commuted the sentences of nearly 1,500 individuals. He couldn't even sign 1,500 pieces of paper, for goodness sakes. That's why it was the Autopen. That was the Autopen doing sort of everything. It's just sort of unimaginable. And yet not, right? Because, you look back on the Hunter Biden stuff and the fact that his dad was the vice president in charge of Ukraine policy, and then suddenly Hunter gets a job, no qualifications, working on the board of Burisma, where he's getting paid big bucks, like $600,000 a year. Like nobody makes that on a board job. Why was he making that money? Oh, it was protection money for the now defunct shady energy company Burisma. And so it goes, right? Whether it's Chinese energy money or Romanian money or you name it, there was Hunter, right? Waiting in the wings, ready to cash in. And now we learn the Autopen, most in history, 8,064 pardons. And so I think, unfortunately, these questions have to be asked. And Tim Burchett is asking the right question. What exactly, and this is what needs to be answered, ladies and gentlemen, in addition to a whole bunch of other stuff. We got to clean that place up. We are draining the swamp, you bet, every single day now. And Donald Trump's talked about this, right? He's mentioned like these things can't actually be working because if the Autopen signed it, it wasn't Joe. It wasn't the president. Therefore, it can and should be legally challenged.
David, speaking of the Justice Department, President Trump has recently been saying that pardons issued by his predecessor, Joe Biden, may be invalid. What's that about?
Brett, that's right. President Trump's been talking about some of the later pardons at the end of then-President Biden's term, specifically those on the January 6th committee, saying that since they were signed with Autopen, they are invalid. But first, we don't know officially that those were signed with Autopen. And second of all, an OLC, Office of Legal Counsel opinion from right here at the Justice Department in 2005 during the George W. Bush administration says that Autopens are valid. Today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt brought up the former president's frame of mind and if President Biden was aware when he signed those pardons. But legal experts I've spoken to agree providing then President Biden's frame of mind, proving his frame of mind will not be easy in a court of law and don't view this as holding up in court.
Excuse me. All right. Well, granted, that was from a couple months ago, that little soundbite I played. This is when the first issue first came up. So I think a little bit has changed since then. And I'm just going to start with Jake Tapper's book. I mean, it's what we all knew. It's what we were all reporting, that this president was not in any kind of frame of mind to be doing anything, frankly. And so, yes, if that has to get proven out, I think you can probably prove it out pretty darn easily. I mean, should we run the clips again? I could prove it out. I tried to tell y'all. Not the Democrats listen to the show. They should. They would have known better than to run that guy. And again, I go back to the reality of the U.S. Constitution, Article 2. Thank you very much. The president, not the president's minions, must, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Therefore, if he was not actually making sure that anything was executed, then guess what? Good old Joe Biden was not really acting as the president of the United States. And therefore, if he's not acting as the president of the United States, guess what? Those things are null and void, as much as CNN and others want to fight it.
But the Autopen has become a common practice in the White House. Here we are talking about that and not about the hundreds of January 6th pardons that he proposed and implemented in the White House that should be, maybe let's take a look at each and every one of them.
Well, he signed those. I think he did it on TV.
He signed those, but the Autopen process has been a common practice in the White House, and now he wants to invalidate it.
Well, I don't think it's a common practice.
I actually don't think it's about the pen. I don't think it's about the pen. I think it's about the cognitive decline of Joe Biden that the press covered up for 4 years. It's about the fact that this could be he's talking about elder abuse. He's talking about the cognition of the former president was highly questionable. And I'll give you some numbers about the FBI.
Demonstrate that if Trump is claiming that Biden had absolutely no idea what was going on here, don't you have to actually have evidence of that?
Well, okay, let's talk about whether Biden knew what he was talking about or not. Joe Biden gave interviews. He called on dead reporters. Joe Biden gave interviews where he talked. Okay, listen, and Donald Trump, well,
she asked me a question.
Anna,
okay, I'm now answering the question myself.
Just a second, okay? Finish your thought, and then you can jump in.
So we have lots of evidence of Biden's cognitive decline. He was calling on dead reporters in press conferences. He was shaking hands with ghosts that didn't exist. What? He couldn't even go, he was shaking hands with the air. He didn't know where to go. He had to be guided because he had no idea what was going on. He couldn't do a basic sentence without looking at a large card.
Let's say that all of this is true. Again, it's a very specific allegation here. I mean, just on a basic level. You got to be able to actually show proof of the thing that you're alleging. And there is no proof of any of this.
Well, AARP says that $28.3 billion in elder exploitation every year. FBI says $3.4 billion in internet crime against elders every year.
Okay,
this is a question about cognitive behavior.
That is proof that Biden used Autopen to sign the pardons and he didn't know about it?
There's a lot of evidence that those are
important statistics, but it has nothing to do with this conversation.
Well, here's the good thing. The good thing is that Donald Trump is going to be the...
all right, so... the wheels are coming off the bus on that one. But anyway, the point being that he was not in a mental state to actually sign those in the first place. So if you were going to actually argue that, in the day of technology, we're here and it's 2024 when he was signing these things, and we're here now in 2025 and the Autopen is just the way of the world, you would have to assume that you had a president who was capable, mentally, physically capable, knew what he was doing. You can go back to the Robert Hur testimony. For goodness sakes, they wouldn't even charge him the way they charged Trump, right? With making off with some files that he kept in his garage, locked up next to his Ferrari. They wouldn't even charge him because he was just a frail old man that couldn't remember a darn thing. Okay? So how could a frail old man that can't remember anything actually get through more than 8,000 pardons? How could he have reviewed that? The answer is he couldn't. How could he have signed off on any policies? The answer is he couldn't, and Donald Trump knows it.
Biden, look, it's a very sad thing what happened, but we're going to start looking into this whole thing with who signed this legislation. Who signed legislation opening our border? I don't think he knew. I said there's nobody that could want an open border. Nobody. And now I find out that it wasn't him. He auto-penned it. Who was operating the auto-pen? This is a very serious thing. We had a president that didn't sign anything. He auto-penned almost everything. He opened the borders of the United States of America. And I kept saying, who would do such a thing? Allowing criminals to pour in from all over the world, not just South America, all over the world. They came in from Africa, they came in from Asia, they came from the Congo. The prisons in the Congo in Africa, these are rough people. The prisons from the Congo are empty. You know where they are? They're in this country. Who would sign this? Nobody would sign it. No sane person would sign it. You know who signed it? Radical left lunatics that were running our country, and the Autopen signed it. And they didn't want him, and they were disappointed in getting him because they wanted Bernie Sanders. And then after about 2 weeks, they said, wait a minute, this is a gift. He'll do anything. We're going to use the Autopen. And they used the Autopen and everything. He didn't approve this.
You gotta love him, right? Hey, welcome. We got a new team member. John, great to have you here. Welcome to the broadcast. You gotta love him. You gotta love him because he's calling it out. He's calling them balls and strikes like a normal person would. Because he's totally right. Like, who would come up with this insane policy? Like, other than, I don't know, George Soros type people, right? They kind of believe in this whole open border. It wasn't good for anybody. It wasn't good for this country. We couldn't afford it. So who was doing this and who was issuing the pardons? I'm telling you, it's a problem because all of these things, whether they be treaties, whether they be pardons, executive actions, all of these things are now up for grabs. And they're going to be challenged in federal court. And the investigation is underway because, my gosh, this guy was in terrible shape. You know it. I know it. We all saw it.
And to the Gila Indian River community, the Gila, nothing wrong with me.
Nothing wrong. Okay, he kind of had a sense of humor earlier on, but it got worse and worse and worse. And so you can't have a situation where an entire administration is covering up for one guy, not invoking the 25th, as Peace of My Mind points out in the chats. I saw that. You're right. This is what happens when you don't invoke the 25th. The 25th is there for a reason. You know what's even scarier? They were willing to run him again. Think about that. Until the you-know-what hit the fan, they were running him. And they were on our case when we dared to show things like that and point out that the guy might not be playing with a full deck. So this, in and of itself, that rise in my estimation totally to a federal crime. And this is where you're going to see some real problems for the Democrat establishment and the Biden administration and everybody that was part of this.
They knew that the president was not capable of doing the job at least some of the time. That's not just a political scandal, and there's a big political scandal component to all of this, of course. That is, to use one of the other phrases that they like to employ quite a bit, a constitutional crisis, a real one. Right? The power of the presidency, all that authority is invested in a person who has been elected by the American people, in the president. If they felt like he couldn't get the job done at least part of the time, and I think it probably, that portion of the pie grew and grew as time went on, there is a constitutional mechanism to rectify the situation. But they didn't go there, of course, because that would have admitted that the conspiracy theory, quote unquote, was true about his capabilities and his function. And they were still planning on running him for another 4-year term. So you had basically in private, in secret, a small group of unelected people running the executive branch. That is not allowed under the Constitution. And that is a genuine, serious scandal.
Boom. That was Guy Benson, by the way, on Fox. And he's totally right. It's exactly what I was saying. Okay, so he's put a little punctuation on my point there, that is not who we are as a country. You cannot have some group of unelected people running the whole shebang while Joe Biden's off, taking naps on the beach in Delaware. How many vacation days? Like 500 and something. The most vacation days and the most pardons. I mean, the guy did not work. He had a whole Autopen system doing everything for him. And that is a problem because that kind of looks a little bit like, oh, dare I say the word coup? Right? What else do you call that? The fact that they were trying to run him again and that they were trying to cover all this up, and you know they were trying to cover it up. They kept telling us we were the cheap fakes. No, we weren't. We actually had it down. Oh, you know who's freaking out now? Jen Psaki. Little peppermint Patty who just got herself a big show taken over for the big leagues, right? Over on MSNBC. Problem is, you know, Rachel Maddow's ratings were bad enough, but peppermint Patty's are even worse, if you can imagine. Anyway, she's freaking out. She better make a little money while she can because she is in trouble and she knows it, which is why she went on this podcast and freaked out when somebody mentioned just the word cover up. How dare you, right? Cover up has such a connotation. You better believe it does, Peppermint Patty.
I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly, right? And all these books are going to tell us.
Like, do you think that were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial, or was that just a bad debate? Like, what is your read on that?
Well, this is what I mean about cover up is a very loaded term, I think.
Well, it means you knew that it was really bad and you're pretending otherwise versus you're deluding yourself, which I think is what people do a lot.
Well, I understand, but I still think it's like cover up is often like a crime, right? We're talking when people use that term.
They say it's worse than the crime.
People use that term as they relate to Watergate or the covering up of not sharing public information about a war.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime.
I understand, but other people have used that term, and I think it's a bit of a dangerous term.
Ooh, we can't say it was a cover-up because she's going to get a little worried. Well, Jen Psaki, you might want to be a little worried. I do believe you said we shouldn't use the term cover-up because it kind of sounds like Watergate. Well, the liberal author that just wrote the book on the whole thing, one Jake Tapper, says you better believe it's like Watergate, different and even worse than Watergate. In other words, biggest political scandal of our time. Here he is with Piers Morgan. He says the words.
This brings me to your conclusion, which said Joe Biden is not Richard Nixon. The hiding and the cover-up of his deterioration is not Watergate. I'm not entirely sure I agree, Jake, with that conclusion. Yeah, well, I'm not entirely sure.
The next line is it is an entirely separate scandal. It is a scandal.
Yes.
It is without question, and maybe even worse than Watergate in some ways.
Right.
Because Richard Nixon was in control of his faculties when he wasn't drinking. And, the idea that, we don't mean to exonerate. The only reason that we have the Watergate thing is there because we quote Archibald Cox, who was a Watergate investigator, talking about how powerful the presidency is and how presidents get surrounded by people who have a vested interest in keeping that president propped up. So that's the only reason we invoke Watergate, is just to make clear, like, it's not Watergate. Right. This is an entirely separate scandal. Maybe even worse. Maybe even worse.
Yeah, I think arguably it is worse, actually.
I'm with you, Piers. Okay, I'm with you, Piers. And you know what, Jake? I don't have a lot of respect for your reporting, period. I don't have a lot of respect for you, even as a presenter. I think you're terrible, and somebody needs to give you voice lessons because the nasal voice, don't get me started. I realize I'm being catty, but as a classically trained singer, nasal voices, especially on men, drive me nuts. All right, so you combine the nasal voice with bad reporting, vicious reporting, with a very deliberate viewpoint designed to carry somebody else's water. And I'm sorry, Jake Tapper is bad news, all right? Bad news. Figures. He's over there on CNN. And now. Maybe he's looking for a job at Fox. I wonder, is that what this is about? He's trying to, keep some powder dry because they're not paying any more over on CNN. They can't afford anybody on CNN because no one's watching. Again, reminder, subscribe, share, like. It is incredible. We're actually doing more views than any of my former networks, believe it or not, here on this channel. You compare it to FBN or CNBC or Bloomberg, it's kind of amazing. So thank you for that. It shows you the power of independent media. Anyway, poor Jake Tapper with his bad reporting. I mean, it's bad, right? And, well, we won't go there on The Voice, was trying to tell us that we were all wrong all the time. When I report things like, oh, I don't know this was a cheap fake, I guess. Did you see that? That was that moment that Biden was at G7. Let me see if I can run it again and you'll be able to see me and I'll speak at the same time because I want to talk over this. Yeah, so this is Biden and he gets so entranced with these parachuters. Georgia Maloney's incredible. She's the woman who's running Italy. She recognizes that he's like wandering off into the field and she grabs him to bring him back for the photo opportunity. This is like very much an old guy. Now watch when he tries to put on his sunglasses because this is really terrible. It's so slow. They're taking the picture. He's putting on his sunglasses as slow as he can. He's not moving right. All of this is, to me, very indicative of somebody who's got a mental decline going on. And then when he'd try and talk and he'd space out, I showed you this one, right? I mean, here he is, says...
I have a lot of questions. I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
He said, I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
Everyone, please move.
So then they start asking questions, and he kind of like looks off into the distance.
Thank you all.
Unbelievable. Right? This is pretty bad stuff, you guys. Pretty bad stuff. And yet, the bad reporters of the world wanted us to think that he was doing fine. That, all of this was just somehow okay when we knew how badly he was struggling. Yeah, you better believe it's worse than Watergate. I remember KJP.
They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation, disinformation, and so we see this, and this is something coming from your part of the world, calling them cheap fakes and misinformation. And I'll quote the Washington Post, where they wrote about this, and they said how Republicans use misleading videos to attack Biden in a 24-hour period. And to their credit, we have a conservative Washington Examiner did call them out as well, calling out the New York Post. Ironically, several recent cheap fakes actually attacked the president for thanking troops. That is what they're attacking the president for. Both in Normandy, this happened, and again in Italy. And I think that it tells you everything that we need to know about how desperate Republicans are here. And instead of talking about the president's performance in office, and what I mean by that is his legislative wins, what he's been able to do for the American people across the country, we're seeing these deep fakes. These manipulated videos. And it is, again, done in bad faith.
Sorry, but, it's not our fault that he's in bad shape. Remember the invisible chair? Okay, in fairness, there were some clips of the invisible chair. This was in Normandy, going around online, where it looked like there wasn't really a chair. There was a chair. But if you clip the video too early, which we didn't do, we showed you the whole thing. It doesn't matter. You don't even need to clip the video early. It's clear. Nobody's sitting down. But Joe's desperate to sit. He's trying to sit. Like nobody's sitting, and his wife is like, And finally everybody sits. But it's just, again, another example of, unfortunately, sort of one of those blooper moments. I mean, you combine that with, I don't even like to show these because they're so bad, but him falling while he was going up or down the stairs on Air Force One, or when he was falling there at Air Force Academy. I mean, it's bad stuff, right? But invisible chair, remember? This is great. Okay, so everybody sits. But if we go back for a little bit, so a lot of people were just showing this part, right, where he like he had to sit. And then, he kept trying, and nobody else is sitting. And then finally, if you watch the whole thing all the way through, eventually everybody gets down to sitting. This, again, was in Normandy. And there was a chair there. So it wasn't like, he was looking for a chair that didn't exist. But I will say this, like, the fact that they tried to play this off as us being the problem, that's an issue. I mean, could we not talk about the time when he said, "Where's Jackie?" Remember the poor congresswoman who had been killed in an auto accident? It was a big deal. And then, there he is months later saying, "Where's Jackie?"
And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this.
No, unfortunately, Jackie's upstairs. We hope. Right? I mean, that was a cover-up. All right, the whole thing was a cover-up. Like, we weren't supposed to play that. We weren't supposed to talk about that. And I'm like, I can't. I remember saying this to, like, friends and family. I can't believe they're going to run him. I really can't believe. Like, did they have some kind of death wish? Do they want to lose? Like, why would you run this guy? Why? I mean, it wasn't until this moment in time that they kind of came to grips with reality, because the Autopen was powerful. Autopen, Ottopenn. I think one of you guys in the chat was spelling it that way. It was like,
I've changed the law. What's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we...
Oopsie daisy. Wait, is he saying that the border situation is better than when he was in office? I don't think so. Okay? Like, the floodgates open when you came in, buddy boy.
Going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people.
Yeah. He screwed up, but it wasn't him. Okay, that's the deal, guys. It wasn't him. It was the Autopen.
That of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
Okay, I shouldn't laugh. But you know what? They deserve everything they got because they tried to fool us. They tried to trick you. So you know what? When I sit here and laugh at that, like I'm laughing at them. But it's not even that much of a laughing matter. Actually, it's pretty darn serious. I mean, I'm glad that Donald Trump won, but think about what would have happened if he hadn't. And we had Dr. Jill out there acting like he was a 2-year-old who had just learned to use the potty, for goodness sakes, right after the debate, congratulating him.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the... And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lied! Yes.
All right, so she's in trouble now. All the enablers are actually in trouble now because they're going to be asked the questions that they need to be asked. Why did you guys allow this? Why did you not actually put in the 25th Amendment? I mean, Kamala, what were you thinking? Well, I don't think she was thinking. I don't think Kamala can even think. So they had like a perfect scenario, right? You have a couple of dummies there, one totally incapacitated, the other can't string a sentence together. And so then you get the Autopen running the whole shebang and it's game on. So who was running the country? The staffers like Jen Psaki? I mean, I don't think KJP's smart enough. Blinken? He was the one that was responsible, remember, for the big infamous letter of the 51X spooks that sat there and lied to you, John Brennan, the whole bunch, Mike Morrell. That was all Blinken's idea because they didn't want the laptop to get in the way of the election. So they told everybody it was misinformation and even shut down the New York Post Twitter account because of it. You couldn't even talk about these things. These were the people in charge. And these are the people that are going to pay the price. Jake Tapper, I'm sorry, I was kind of ruthless on him. I'm actually a very nice person. I just can't stand shoddy reporting that is not fair, that is not right, and that is all designed to make a buck. And that's what his book is, by the way. But, you know, it is what it is. We, on the other hand, here at the Trish Regan Show are fully independent, and I think that's why we keep growing and growing and growing. I want to show you his apology, his sort of quasi-apology to Lara Trump, because she completely eviscerates him. But first, in the name of independence, and in the name... she's just eviscerating him. It's not going very well. So we got to get to that. But before we do, I'll tell you this. You know what, guys? The real problem here, the real problem with all of this is that they tried to deceive the American people. And when you try to deceive the American people are going to fight back. Donald Trump knows this because he's pointing out, like, what the heck? I mean, was it the doctor? I mean, we now learn that he had a very serious form of prostate cancer in a very advanced stage, and he wasn't getting the test for it. Like, why wouldn't you get the test? You're the president of the United States, for goodness sakes, Joe Biden. You need the tests. So either you got crapola medical care, okay, or somebody's hiding something because they don't want the American people to know that you're suffering from this. Either way, this is no win. This is bad. Trump gets it.
Do you want to respond to President Biden being diagnosed with cancer? Are you going to call your predecessor?
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago. Because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. I got them all right. You proud of me? Yes. Your husband would be proud of me for getting them all right. It's a little risk. If I didn't get them all right, these people would be after me. It would be not a good situation. But I think, frankly, anybody running for president should take a cognitive test. They say it's unconstitutional, but I would say in that particular case, having a cognitive test wouldn't be so bad. But when you take tests, medical tests, as a male, that test is very standard. I don't know if it's given to everybody, but it's given just about. And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think to get to stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there. That's being proven to be a sad situation. And the Autopen is becoming a very big deal. The Autopen is becoming a big deal because it seems like that maybe was the president who ever operated the Autopen. But when they say that that was not good, they also, you have to look and you have to say that the test was not so good either. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed, and I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor. If it's the same, or even if it's two separate doctors, why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out that's not so. It's very dangerous. Look, this is no longer politically correct. This is dangerous for our country. Look at the mess when you're talking about all these questions on Ukraine and Russia. That would have never happened. As an example of our president, would have never happened. The other thing is you have to say, why did it take so long? I mean, when this takes a long time. It can take years to get to this level of danger. So it's a very, very sad situation. I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened, because I'll tell you, I don't know if it had anything to do with the hospital. Walter Reed is really good. They're some of the best doctors I've ever seen. I don't even know if they were involved, but a doctor was involved in each case. Maybe it was the same doctor, and somebody is not telling the facts. It's a big problem.
I'm just gonna say he's so right. Okay, like this is. He talks all the time, by the way. It's fantastic, right? Tremendous transparency. That some reporters are furious because they're not getting transcripts of every single moment he speaks. But can you imagine? I mean, maybe you'd have to get AI to be involved in all the transcription, because there'd be so much transcription. He's talking so much. He talks to reporters. He talks to everyone. And it's a whole different ballgame. But, he's talking sense. What he said is totally right. I mean, I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. You can't have a country where your president's health might be at risk and nobody's telling you. For goodness sakes, I mean, think about Lloyd Austin, right? Lloyd Austin goes off because he's got the urinary tract infection, doesn't even tell anyone. I mean, what kind of operation were they running? The Autopen operation. That's a problem. And Lara Trump says this so well when she totally eviscerates Jake Tapper, because she's like, look, we came that close. This could have been another 4 years of who the heck knows running the show. Is a very gracious person. Let me just say, I don't know as I could have been so gracious, because Jake Tapper got really nasty with her a while back on CNN. Not that long ago. It was actually just before Biden had to drop out of the race, in part because of Jake's doing. He went on television and gave a big spiel about how we can't have this guy running for the presidency. Well, because they knew he couldn't win. And George Clooney put the op-ed out. The whole gang was involved. Well, back when Lara was noticing all of those things that I just showed you about, how he was out of it and he couldn't get his words out and he was walking slow and did not seem to be in really tip-top shape from a cognitive perspective, Jake Tapper had her on the show and just ambushed her. I mean, he ambushed her, right? Because he showed some clip of her talking about poor Joe and can Joe get it out, get the words out. And then he starts to say, Lara, you were making fun of him for having a stutter. How do you feel about yourself? You're such a bad person. I'm like, wow. I mean, this was unbelievable to watch. And I want you to see it first before we go to the alleged apology and her gracious response and her warning. But let's take a listen just to what he did. Bad guy.
Laura, when did that apology come?
Forgive me. I want to go to Jake first, because that's the good part. She actually sort of kind of forgives him in a very gracious way, but has a big warning. Here's Jake.
But Jake, in your case, do you feel that you owe the American people an apology for slightly dropping the ball with this, and not just to Lara Trump?
I feel like I owe the American people an acknowledgement that I wish I had covered the story better. Knowing what we know now, and looking back on that interview, which I feel tremendous humility about, she was right and I was wrong. I did not see in the moments he was having, I did not see that as cognitive decline. She did. Our reporting suggests that she was correct. So I feel humility. I've apologized to her. And I feel like, and I think this is something, quite frankly, that other journalists should think about when it comes to other mistakes, because I'm surely not the only American journalist that wishes he or she had covered this better. In legacy media, I should point out, conservative media was on this from the very beginning. And that is, I will try to do better. And that I could roll a bunch of clips of me asking about this issue. And in 2020, I asked President Biden, then Vice President Biden, will you pledge to be transparent about your health? And he said yes, although he was not. And I only got one interview with him as president in 2022. And I asked him about the American people think you're too old. Whenever you're confronted with that, you say, watch me. The American people are watching you. They still think you're too old. So it's not like I was ignoring it. And it's not like I was part of the effort to hide this. But in retrospect, of course, I wish my coverage had been better on this subject. And I think while I recognize to a degree I'm the avatar of American legacy journalism right now when it comes to this story, I think in order to regain trust, that there is something that we can do when we fall short, and I'm acknowledging it.
Okay, so this is like a mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa. But again, I go back to the original clip. What a nasty guy.
Every time he comes on stage or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
you are
to
no
watch somebody on stage search for
that's so
questions
amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter.
Yeah,
I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
you just talked
is
about
that
a cognitive decline.
That Joe Biden
I have one last
struggling
question for you, Laura. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel sorry for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure.
Like, I really haven't seen a lot. Like that was just really ugly. Like really, really, really ugly. And I think it's important to like remember that and see that, because you got to understand the kind of guy he is. He sat there and looked at all the same videotape that I just showed you, right? He knew he's seen the same feeds come in. Everyone saw it. Everyone knew that Joe was in very tough shape. And yet he's going to just try and slaughter poor Lara Trump when she comes on graciously enough to join his show, and he ambushes her like that. Like, that is not cool. So apparently Jake has now decided to apologize. I mean, it's all part of the bottom line, right? He's got book sales coming up. So he called Lara, according to Lara, and said, I'm going to apologize to you when the book comes out, right? Here he is thinking through his headlines and his little news cycle. How am I going to sell more books? Don't buy this book. Please don't buy this book. Because it's so not worth it. He's trying to appeal to conservatives. That's why he's like, oh, the conservative media knew it. That's why he's going on conservative shows, because he wants conservatives to buy the book along with the liberals. Here is Lara speaking with Laura Ingraham last night on Fox, telling the story of how Jake called her up and said, I'm going to apologize. Watch.
Laura, when did that apology come? And if you don't mind sharing with us, what did he say?
Yeah, Jake Tapper called me about 2 months ago, actually. And he said, I have this book coming out, and I know everybody's saying that I should apologize to you. I plan, whenever the book comes out, to go on TV and I will say, you were right and I was wrong. And I guess to Jake's credit, he did that. Now, Laura, I think the overarching thing here, though, is that the damage is done, right? We were so close to something so dangerous happening to this country. I mean, look at what actually happened. Look at the millions of illegal immigrants able to pour in. People are questioning now, who was actually in charge of this country. I guess whoever was in charge of the Autopen. we really have to think about what would have happened if Joe Biden would have been elected. These people would have swept his condition under the rug even more. And Jake Tapper saying that this is like a Watergate level type of situation. Now that he played a role in it, it feels a little bit too late to me. I do appreciate that he did keep his word, though, and come out and say that I was right.
Did he actually call you, or was the on-air dramatic apology, was that it?
No, he called me and said that he was going to do this. So then.
Okay, but he didn't actually apologize to you in a subsequent phone call. He said he was going, it's like so convoluted.
Yeah,
he said it's
something
kind of
like that.
odd.
And then, yeah, as people were kind of ribbing him more, he said, I told you whenever the book comes out, I guess it was May 20th, I would come out and say it. So,
but
that's interesting, right? So again, I'm going to get back to character for a second, because he's not even a decent enough guy to give her the full-fledged apology. He just says, I'm going to apologize on the air. So Laura's right, Laura Ingraham, when she's saying this is kind of convoluted, like this is kind of weird. Because you know what? It's all staged, ladies and gentlemen. It's all frickin' staged. He wants to sell more books. So for Jake Tapper to be able to go on and say, I'm going to apologize at the right time when the book comes out, it's all about trying to get more money in Jake's pocket. It's not a sincere apology. I don't think he cares that he reported things badly. This is not some kind of wake-up call for him. This is an opportunity to cash in while he still can. Okay, let's just own up to what it is and who he is. So she's very gracious. She's lovely. She's a wonderful person, by the way. I'm just going to say that. Both she and Eric are just terrific. I have a lot of respect for both of them. Incredibly hardworking, both very smart people, wonderful parents as well. And I like them very, very much. We should get her on the show. Eric's been on, of course. Anyway, I digress. But wonderful moment from Lara. Not so wonderful from Jake. Meanwhile, down in Tennessee, some ugly stuff happening there, because you got a mayor who somehow wants to take on all of ICE. Yep, this mayor of Nashville is running up against a little problem, though. You see, he wants to take a look at him there with the glasses on. He wants to make sure that ICE can't get its hands on any illegal criminals that are in the city of Nashville. The problem is Representative Ogler, he's the other guy in that shot. You know, he's the representative from the Nashville, Tennessee area, and he's saying, no. We need to get the criminals off the street. This is what I want. This is what the people want. This is what America voted for. And so as a result of that, they are launching an investigation. How do you like this? Into one, what's his name? Freddie O'Donnell there, the mayor of Nashville. Let's take a listen to Representative Andy Ogle coming forward with the breaking news just now. Listen.
I will always stand on the rule of law and with ICE. And I don't just stand with ICE, I'll stand in front of ICE. Because we, the people, have had enough. I choose my community, my state, and my family over this type of nonsense. Which is why, due to the remarks of Freddie O'Connell and the potential for aiding and abetting illegal immigration, the Homeland Security and the Judiciary Committees will be conducting an investigation into the mayor of Nashville, his conduct, and whether or not federal dollars have been used in criminal enterprise. I will not back down. I will not relent. And I will always stand with law enforcement. I want my community and I want my country back. This is Andy Ogles. Thank you for being here.
Wow, pretty powerful statement there from Representative Andy Ogles saying he wants his community and he wants his country back. And what's interesting here is now the feds are looking into whether or not you had Freddie O'Connell, not O'Donnell, forgive me, there in Nashville, Tennessee, quote, aiding and abetting illegal immigrants and obstructing ICE agents. So this is once again showing us how you've got this confrontation between state or local and federal law. And I'm going to say it like I always say it. Guess what? You guys are going to lose that one all day long because There's this little thing called the Constitution. And when it comes to things like immigration, the feds have all the say in the world. I mean, unless you want to just, become your own little country, Tennessee, Nashville, and I don't think you do, you're going to lose that because it's written right into the Constitution. And in fact, it's so specific. This came up in 2012 in Arizona that they actually took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supremacy Clause says, you know what? Oh, the feds have the supremacy over the states and local jurisdictions when it comes to immigration. So you can say you're sanctuary, but if the feds come in with ICE and they want to round people up, you don't have a say in any of that because the Department of Homeland Security is responsible for who is here in this country. So it's a very progressive mayor. And basically, he had a total fury over ICE coming in and trying to nab migrants with gang affiliations. So it's an important distinction. And a lot of people would say, Stephen Miller, well, if you're here illegally, that's criminal enough. But these are people with gang affiliations, believed to have gang affiliations. And so he went out and signed an executive order making city staff report all communications that they have with agents right back to him. And so this is why Ogles is saying, wait a second, you can't do that. You can't do that. You had Tom Homan on Fox last night, not only saying, hey, not only can you not do that, but guys, come on. Can we get a thank you, for goodness sakes? We're actually trying to help you. We're trying to clean up your cities. We're trying to keep your people safe. Why do you treat us this way?
That guy. But we're going to do it, and he's not going to stop us.
Do you think this would rise perhaps to the level of charging him with obstruction of these ICE officials?
We'll see. I mean, I know Homeland Oversight is opening up a congressional investigation. I cannot confirm or deny if ICE is investigating him, but we'll see where it plays out. And it isn't just what he says, is what he does. So I plan on going to Nashville in the near future, and I said that from day one that we're going to hit every sanctuary city. Everybody that wants to push back against ICE, we're going to pay a lot of attention to them because why? It's not a threat. But if you're going to support criminal aliens walking the street, then we know there's a problem there. We don't have that problem like Florida. We got Governor DeSantis 287G across the state. So we can spend less resources in Florida knowing we have a system to get criminal aliens in every jail in that state. But when we got places like Nashville who's pushing against us getting the bad guy, that's where we got to concentrate our resources to make those streets safer. He ought to be thanking ICE for arresting the criminal aliens they arrested. They arrested, as you said earlier, a sex offender, several people that are convicted of violent crimes, gang members, and illegal aliens that were deported many times before, which means now they're a felon. We made his streets safer. A thank you would be nice, not attacking the men and women of ICE.
Are you going to meet with him?
A thank you would be nice, right? Is it that hard? I mean, I remember a time when actually everybody agreed on this. We've played the sound. Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. Oh, you got all the way back to Dianne Feinstein saying we can't be the welfare state for Mexico. Okay, there used to be a time when actually Democrats believed in borders until, of course, Donald Trump came right down the escalator at Trump Tower in 2016 with his beautiful wife alongside him and his beautiful family. And he said, listen, we're going to roll the red carpet out for the immigrants that we want here. We are a country of immigrants, but we're going to get rid of the bad ones. And he made this his issue. And because it was his issue and they suffer from such severe TDS, all of a sudden now they became pro-open border. Oh, George Soros is having a party, right? This is nuts. It's nuts. And you know what? It's happening in Nashville, and it's happening in Chicago, and it's happening in Boston, and it's happening in California, and it's happening in New York. Pam Bondi, the DOJ, coming out and saying they are charging New York and Letitia James and the governor, Kathy Hochul, and the head of the DMV, because you cannot do what they're doing. Now, the upshot of this, before you say, oh, it's not going anywhere, it's not going anywhere, it is going somewhere, because guess what? Because of this, they cut off all the funding for New York, which is why Letitia's flipping out and firing off all these lawsuits, trying to get some money back, because the state has got nothing, because it's not complying with the law.
We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment. New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today.
Yes. Except it may take a little time. Okay, so it's got to stop. They're going to lose money. They're in lawsuits now, trying to get the money back. I think fundamentally, though, you're coming down to this clash between state, local, and federal law enforcement. And you can go back to the Constitution, and whether it's the Supremacy Clause, and that one's been argued out, or whether you're going to use the Commerce Clause, or just the reality of the Naturalization Clause, which puts the federal government in charge of all this. They are in charge. It's why, for goodness sakes, I mean, did you not feel for Texas? When the poor governor of Texas, Governor Abbott's like trying to put back the wall that the Biden administration was taking down, and he couldn't. And why couldn't he? Oh, because the feds are in charge of the border. And unless Texas were to secede, which, you know, sometimes I wondered if they should, they didn't have a chance because Biden controlled that. Okay, well, guess what? It's Trump in charge now. Somebody's in charge now. And given that Trump is in charge and all of his people are in full-on agreement that we need a controlled border, that's not asking for much. Just have some border patrol and some control over it. And do things the right way. Well, because of that, they're carrying on like they are. And so when we talk about the potential for a civil war brewing in this country, I mean, that's it. That's it. I mean, they're the ones doing this. What are we supposed to say? Okay, fine, we're going to open up all the borders. Like, it's just absolutely fine. And federal taxpayer dollars are going to support your illegal immigrants that are with ties to gangs there in Nashville, Tennessee. That's not going to happen, okay? It's not going to happen. Certainly not under this president's watch. You're getting Trish Regan's Irish up. Remember to subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. Bitcoin is on a tear. Let me see if I can figure out what Bitcoin is doing right now. We get a lot of businesses going on. Don't forget, after the bell, earnings coming out of NVIDIA. And you may not think you have anything to do with NVIDIA, but trust me, you do probably. If you're in any of the indices, right? You're going to have something to do with NVIDIA. And it's just a remarkable company, remarkable stock. They're looking for 93 cents a share on revenue of $43.31 billion. Anyway, let me go here to see what Bitcoin is doing, because there is a big conference going on, like humongous conference. It's 107. Okay, so it's trading down 2%. I actually bought a little bit of it before I came on the air because it was down 2%. I keep waiting. I'm like, when's it going back to 78? I don't know as it's going back to 78, but this is hysterical because David Sachs, who's our crypto czar, brilliant guy, by the way. It's good to have brilliant people, right? In big positions like the cryptos are. And I actually do think that crypto is going to play a huge role in our future in terms of how it's going to affect everything. It's just so efficient, and we can have a longer, broader conversation on this, and we should. And maybe Don will weigh in some of the comments because he's not a crypto fan. But listen, I really think that this is the technology of the future, and whether it's the Bitcoin blockchain or whether it's the Bittenzor blockchain, we've written about that actually at 76 Research. I encourage you to check out 76research.com. Use code word $, so you get it for $1 a month. Or whether it's some of the others. Squeeze, another one. It's all the ex-Facebook guys that were trying to create Libertas, and because of concerns about monopoly, etc., they actually left and they started SUI, S-U-I, which is very interesting as a blockchain itself that's really taking us forward into this Web 3.0. You see, I can completely wonk out and turn into a total dork, but I won't. I'll get back to David Sachs, who said, now we know who the Autopen is, at least when it came to crypto. You want to know who it was? Can you guess? I knew who it was. Oh, gosh, I'll give you a hint. It's a she. And man, does she hate Bitcoin and anything crypto. Okay, I can't give it away. Here we go.
This is the financial system of the future, Jesse, and we have to encourage it. What the Biden administration was doing, and let's face it, it wasn't Biden. Elizabeth Warren controlled the Autopen during that administration. She, for some reason, has this pathological hatred of the crypto community. She wants to drive this community offshore. She doesn't want it happening in the United States. That's the wrong policy for the United States. We want all the innovation happening here. This is a financial system of the future. It's cheaper, it's more efficient. We want it happening here, Jesse, and I think people are thrilled that President Trump is making that possible.
Yeah, they are. By the way, we got to update our graphic here. We've got a market that's flat right now. There is, however, optimism for a EU trade deal. We have NVIDIA earnings, as I said, coming out after the bell, and Bitcoin is the money of the future. As far as I'm concerned, 107,000. What did I tell you? Rob and I over at 76 Research, again, this is why you have to subscribe. Hopefully we'll make you a little money. We told you, I think when it was around 50 something, buy this because it really looks like Donald Trump is going to win this election. And when he does, it's going to go through the roof. You've got Michael Saylor, who's been on this very show. He runs the biggest company for Bitcoin. That would be MicroStrategy. And he has a really lofty price target. And, again, you can debate this, but I would say if he's right, you're definitely going to want to have had some exposure. He thinks it's going to 13 million a coin. So we'll see on all that. But again, it's a big part of our future. So take a look at it when you can and let us try and help you in some way, shape, or form there at 76 Research. Go to 76research.com, use code word dollar, DOLLAR, and start, looking at this stuff because it's important. It's important for your future for sure. Speaking of future, Harvard's future very much on the line right now. Donald Trump coming out moments ago and saying, you know what, you guys are not very nice to the United States of America. You are not treating our country very nice. And as a result, you're cut off. It's like the kid, no more money. You're done. Hey, Harvard, that's it. Like, this is really hurting Harvard. It's amazing because they get like $50 some odd billion in their fund. Everybody pours money, leaves money to Harvard. It goes into their endowment fund, and you'd think that they'd be fine, but they actually rely on taxpayers more than you think. And because of that, Donald Trump's like, yeah, I get the money, I control the purse strings. So if you're not actually gonna do anything about the anti-Semitism on campus, and if you're not going to do anything about this DEI nonsense that, by the way, the Supreme Court told you had to follow through with, then, maybe we're not going to give you any money. How do you like that, Harvard? Here he is, just minutes ago.
How will the confrontation with Harvard end? Do you foresee?
I don't know. I don't know. Harvard's got to behave themselves. Harvard is treating our country with great disrespect, and all they're doing is getting in deeper and deeper and deeper. They've got to behave themselves. I'm looking out for the country and for Harvard. I want Harvard to do well. I want Harvard to be great again, probably, because how could it be great? How could it be great when you have Harvard announced 2 weeks ago that they're going to teach remedial mathematics, remedial, meaning they're going to teach low-grade mathematics, like 2 + 2 is 4. How did these people get into Harvard if they can't do basic mathematics? How did they do it? I mean, people with 1,600 on their boards don't get in, and they're letting people in, and they're bragging about how they're teaching them basic mathematics. Where did these people come from? So we have to look at the list, and Harvard has to understand the last thing I want to do is hurt them. They're hurting themselves. They're fighting. Columbia has been really, and they were very, very bad what they've done. They're very anti-Semitic and lots of other things. But they're working with us on finding a solution. And, they're taking off that hot seat. But Harvard wants to fight. They want to show how smart they are. And they're getting their ass kicked.
Oh, my gosh. I had not heard the end of that soundbite. I did not realize he said that. They're getting their ass kicked. It's really funny. They are. Okay, they are. And the Wall Street Journal is totally rushing to their defense. And let me just say, the reason why this is such a big deal is because the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, just asked for some simple information. They have 7,000 foreign students there at Harvard University. And so DHS Kristi Noem said, hey, we would like to know whether any of these students have engaged in any of these protests, et cetera, and we would like this information rather promptly. And Harvard's like, well, we're not giving you this information. This is private information, to which the federal government's like, whoa, no. Harvard, you are not an island. You are not your own country. You do not control that. We need access. Department of Homeland Security needs access to this. It's like a no-brainer. And so she was like, hey, you know what? You're not going to give it to us? Then you're done. We're not going to allow foreign students to come to your country. Now, that's being challenged in court, but temporarily anyway, it's having an effect on Harvard. I mean, who would want to come to Harvard, right, as a foreign student? I wouldn't be applying there, right? I mean, you could get kicked out any second. So it's having a chilling effect, which is, I think, the goal and the design on Harvard, regardless of where this goes in the court system. While meanwhile, Trump's like, yeah, and we're canceling all federal contracts. So it's hundreds of millions of dollars that you thought you were going to get, you're not going to get. Kristi Noem on Fox the other night.
Some of these universities have even barred law enforcement officers from coming on campus and haven't even allowed there to be basic law and order on the areas that they're responsible for. So we're going to continue to do our investigations and make sure that what the Department of Homeland Security is responsible for, it will be done with integrity for the way that Congress laid out that programs should work, and the opportunities that we have to allow people to come into this country, learn, and to be a part of a country that promotes freedom and liberty and that everybody is equal. That's not what Harvard is doing, and that's not what we're seeing in some of these college campuses.
Could you foresee, or are you now considering similar moves with other universities like Columbia that has allowed Jewish students to be threatened and made unsafe?
Absolutely. We are absolutely, this should be a warning to every other university to get your act together. Get your act together, because we are coming to make sure that these programs, that you are facilitating an environment where students can learn, where they're safe, and that they're not discriminated against based on their race or their religion. Anti-Semitism will not be stood for, and any participation with a country or an entity or a terrorist group that hates America and perpetuates this kind of violence, we will stop it, and we will not allow that to happen, especially in places where our kids need to grow up and really learn what this country is about, what the world is about, and what it means to promote freedom and liberty.
I can tell you, I really like her, Kristi Noem, aka Ice Barbie. I know some people find that title demeaning. I don't, because she's super pretty. She's totally Ice Barbie, okay? But she's very serious too, and she means what she says, and she's taken this issue on. And it's good to see that kind of follow through, right? Hey, Harvard, here's the deal. We need this information on these students. Harvard says, we can't give you the information. She says, you know what, Harvard? Then we're not going to allow any foreign students to enroll in your university. Harvard says, we're going to fight that. The president comes in and says, yeah, you know what, Harvard? We're going to take away all your money too. So things are not looking good for Harvard right now. On top of that, you now have Marco Rubio getting into the act, breaking right now. The Department of State says that it is putting a pause on all student visas because they want to be able to do better vetting. They want to be able to look at the students' social media accounts. So you make sure you don't get any spies or rabble-rousers or just, bad people, right, coming into the country that are, shall we say, not aligned with our vision of where things are going. And that's quite possible. Look at what, the Khalil guy over at Columbia University or the woman from Turkey at Tufts University. And they have a very sort of different view of things. And if you're at odds with where our State Department is, I don't think our State Department wants you here. Okay? Like that, it's a free country, but it's not necessarily free in the sense that we have to welcome people in that are at odds with our sort of sense of foreign affairs. This came up recently. I remember Marco Rubio talking about this because he's like, wait a second, like if I invite you to my house for dinner and it turns out you're a real jerk and you start insulting me at the dinner table, why should I be inviting you to my house for dinner? And guess what? 1952 law allows for this. It was created during the Cold War era to make sure that we didn't have communists coming into the country. And now they're bringing it back and they're saying, you know what, the State Department has the right to kick anyone out. But in the meantime, they're putting a pause on all student visas until they can come up with a better vetting system that looks at the social media profiles of these students. Watch.
We revoked her visa. It's an F1 visa, I believe. We revoked it, and here's why. And I'll say it again. I said it everywhere. Let me be abundantly clear, okay? If you go apply for a visa right now, anywhere in the world, Let me just send this message out. If you apply for a visa to enter the United States and be a student, and you tell us that the reason why you're coming to the United States is not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. If you lie to us and get a visa and then enter the United States and with that visa participate in that sort of activity, we're going to take away your visa. And once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legally in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right, to remove you from our country. So it's just that simple. I think it's crazy. I think it's stupid for any country in the world to welcome people into their country that are going to go to your universities as visitors. They're visitors. And say, I'm going to your universities to start a riot. I'm going to your universities to take over a library and harass people. I don't care what movement you're involved in. Why would any country in the world allow people to come and disrupt? Now, we gave you a visa to come and study and get a degree, not to become a social activist that tears up our university campuses. And if we've given you a visa and then you decide to do that, we're going to take it away. I encourage every country to do that, by the way, because I think it's crazy to invite students into your country that are coming onto your campus and destabilizing it. We're just not going to have it. So we'll revoke your visa, and once your visa is revoked, you're illegally in the country and you have to leave. Every country in the world has a right to decide who comes in as a visitor and who doesn't. If you invite me into your home because you say, I want to come to your house for dinner, and I go to your house and I start putting mud on your couch and spray painting your kitchen, I bet you're going to kick me out. Well, we're going to do the same thing if you come into the United States as a visitor and create a ruckus for us. We don't want it. We don't want it in our country. Go back and do it in your country. But you're not going to do it in our country.
It's amazing. Amazing, amazing piece of my mind pointing out it's a guest visa, right? Like you're here as a guest. And so if you really don't like the United States or you want to change the United States, no. Work on your own country. Go try and change it there. Don't come here. And so they are putting this pause on these visas in order to come up with a better vetting process so that we make sure we're getting students that are going to engage in all that we have to offer in a good and fruitful and productive way. Imagine that. America first, right? America first. Imagine that. Imagine caring about, markets and DEI policy, et cetera. Good shout out for 76 Research, to put the actual economic policies and the educational policies first. I mean, this is America first policy. This is what we want. It's what's been voted for. Funny story to tell you about. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, although some of you complained the audio is breaking up, but we have a new development on it, so we got to bring it back. Brigitte Macron, the cradle robber. I mean, really, she's 25 years older than her husband, who she picked up when he was like 14, 15 years old. I mean, woo! Okay, this is like something you read about in the tabloids. There's like always a story like in Daily Mail about, but they're usually like a little younger, like 25, going after the 15-year-old. In her case, she was up there. She was 25 years older than one Macron, Emmanuel Macron. And if you didn't see it, well, I got to show you, because there's this video circulating of him getting out of a plane. He had just landed in Vietnam, and she's like hitting him, like seems to be actually just like punching him. And he came out and said, nothing to see here. This is just how we play, right? We're very French. But now there's a lip reader saying, yeah, it's not all that. This is actually kind of bad. So let's see if we can watch this together. Okay, plane door opens up and boom! Something else entirely. I mean, he's saying it's nothing to see here, except everybody's all over this story now. And there are these lip readers that actually lip read in French, and you're not going to believe what she said. This was the lead, by the way. This is the lead on the New York Post. How do you like this? Okay. They led with this morning. That moment, that crucial moment, where they're talking, and what is it that she's saying? My French is bad, so I won't say it in French, but let me go to the Express News, European paper. Here we go. Stay away, loser. Brigitte apparently saying this awkward moment was a rare, unguarded exchange that hints at deeper tensions between the couple, according to the Express lip reader. So what's the deal? Like, what is the deal? Is she an abusive person? Is this why, she picked him up when he was 14, 15 years old. This is great. Babylon B, man. Babylon B for the win, you guys. Totally, totally on it. Here is their headline. I love it. They say, Biden, Macron team up to form support group for battered and abused world leaders. I mean, is that not perfect or is that not perfect? Considering, what we know about Jill Biden and Jill forcing her husband to keep getting out there. He was not going to retire no matter how bad his health was, no matter anything, right? Jill Biden was going to keep him going until the very end. You answered all the questions, Joe.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the... And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lied! Yes.
Okay, so I just think that's kind of funny, right? Biden and Macron team up to form this support group. But in all seriousness, actually, this is a very weird marriage. A very, very weird marriage, because according to the New York Post, and I know some of you in the comments are saying they actually met when he was 14 years old. The New York Post is saying 15. I don't know. I don't care. 14, 15, I don't care. Apparently that's the legal age of consent in France. Whatever. He was a kid. All right? He's a kid. It was 1993. He had a 39-year-old teacher who taught him English and drama. And he somehow takes up in this relationship with her. She's got 3 kids at the time. For goodness sakes, he was the girl that was his daughter was in high school with him. It's twisted and weird. And I'm just going to say it, all right? It's morally wrong. It's just wrong. He was your student, lady. He could have been your kid, lady. And let's just say, all right, I get that the French maybe don't have the same societal norms, but there's this little thing called biology. And, while a little May December may be fine, and an older woman in some cases, younger men may be fine, we're talking about 25 years. She was 39, coming up on 40, and he's 15. Give me a break. That doesn't go well for his future. He can't ever have kids with her or anything. What the heck? He's a kid. Look at this picture of him. He's in the back row there. You can see him. He's the second from the right in the top row, 4th from the right, I should say. Him as a student in high school. And she's preying on this kid, and it's just weird, and it's just wrong. And I don't have a lot of respect for it. Apparently, some people in the town were upset at the time, but not upset enough. How do you think his parents felt? What was this? Did he just always want to be president? And maybe saw her as a ticket? She had some kind of in with the teachers' unions. Did she just always want to be first lady and saw this kid as her meal ticket to becoming the first lady of France? I have a hard time believing this is true love. Okay? Call me a cynic. I still believe in fairy tales. I just don't believe in this one. I really don't. This one is just weird. Okay? He was 29. She was 54 when they were finally married. Here's the marriage picture, happy couple that they are. I'm not buying it. What do you guys think? I know. You don't even necessarily think she has the body parts. I know. I've heard it all. We won't go there, but we'll leave that for Candace. Okay. I don't know as I'm into that. I think, she has 3 kids, 3 daughters, whatever. Again, we won't go there. We're going to keep it clean. I'm just going to say, let's assume he's 15 and she's 39. Anyone else sees, that's the kind of stuff, you should be in jail for. Right? That's Epstein level stuff. Right? Except she's now the first lady of France, who's beating up her husband when she gets the know about Emmanuel Macron and his relationship with his. It's good to have you guys here. We are climbing. Can you believe this? Like I said, party. It's amazing. Oh, what do we do? Like a team member who just joined today. So thank you for that. Thank you for all your support. You guys are truly, truly just extraordinary. And we've been able to build something extraordinary here outside, right, of the confines of the mainstream media, because there's this whole new avenue, and it blows me away every day. I was talking about it at a party, actually, at Memorial Day graduation party with a friend, and they were like, really, you're on YouTube? And people are like, you're on YouTube? I mean, the kids are like, yeah, she's on YouTube. True story. They said to me, Mom, we used to feel bad for you because you were on those networks like Fox. They don't even know what Fox is, right? So they're like, you're on those networks. And then you made it to YouTube. And I'm like, I thought they were kidding me. I was like, what is going on? But no, that is the reality of the world now. And that's what's exciting about the world now. So I was telling this story to a friend at the party, and I was like, it's real. Like, we have a tremendous tune in every day here on the live show. Make sure you subscribe and you hit the bell so that you know when we're here live. And it's extraordinary for me to see, and very rewarding for me to see, because it's just this direct relationship with all of you, from me to you. And I get to see your comments in real time. And Yellow Bear, thank you so much for that. Jeff Hansen, I agree. It's way better than mainstream media. It's just, you know, look, I mean, we have a long show today, right? A long show because we can, because you know what? I don't have commercial breaks that I have to get to. We thank our sponsors, by the way, but I don't have to do this in lockstep. I don't have to have any kind of format. I don't have to follow any rules. And there's something very gratifying and exciting about it. And I love seeing something grow like this. So we're all in this together. You've been such a huge part of it. I thank you for everything that you do to make this channel a success. Leave a comment. Every little bit helps. If you get a chance, also go over to Spotify. You know, I don't have the link on me right now. So the Trish Regan show, check it out there on Spotify if you would. Red dress, blue background. That's how you know which one it is. Do me a favor, if you can, just go over, subscribe. It's free. And maybe leave 5 stars. It all helps. Every bit helps. We are growing, 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 growing. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of it. I will see you right back here live, as always, tomorrow.